Quickly, can we get to understand the audience? So not their life stage, let's say if you are in second year or third year or whatever, right? And a bit about your background, just quickly, any one liner from the audience, so that it helps me understand the background. You can respond in the chat. Folks, it'll help me understand you better. Third year looking for internships. Fourth year, okay, nice. Got it. Got it. And I'm assuming, Anba, so everyone has, Aniba, sorry, everyone has been attending the product matters sessions so far, right? So they have gotten a much detailed understanding of product as a role and what is expected from a PM, right?
Yes, sir. Most of the people are like very consistent in our event.
Got it, got it. Yeah. So glad to know, right? And I hope that I'm able to help you develop a much stronger understanding of product metrics, and which will help you overall in your career goals, right? So yeah, let's jump right in, right? This is the agenda, right? So product metrics and their importance, business metrics, what are those? Engagement metrics, retention metrics, traffic metrics, CX metrics, customer experience metrics, what are the dimensions, and then we'll cover a couple of frameworks to identify the right product metrics and the case study. Okay. Sorry, assignments is not there. Yeah. Uh, so first of all, why product metrics? Why do we use them, right? Why do PMs use product metrics, right? Product metrics help you develop that north star towards which you are working, right? As a PM, you are owning a particular product or a feature, right? And the job of that product is to make the end consumer experience better, right? And help them with their jobs to be done, right? So these are quantifiable data points that help you and the organization, right, to track or to gauge the success, right? For example, you will be building a feature, and then in order to realize or understand whether feature is leading to improve in customer or business metrics or not, right? You need these metrics, right? Otherwise, obviously, qualitative feedback also matters, but these are quantifiable metrics which actually help you understand uh, if your changes or your product, right, is moving in the right direction or not, right? Of course, first of all, these metrics help in strategic decision making, right? So as a PM, you'll be building product roadmaps, backlogs, right? And all those come from the understanding of data, right? Once you understand data, what are the gaps in your product, then you can identify improvements, right? So it helps in strategic decision making. It helps quantify the impact of a product or a feature, right? Because any organization, right, works towards goals that, hey, I need to acquire these many users, or I need to improve the conversion, right? So each release or each feature or each product that you release, right, uh, it becomes measurable. You are able to see the progress, right? And trust me, as a PM, this is one of the key things that will give you kick, right? For a lot of people, completing things is the key, but for PMs, right, you will not be writing code on a daily basis, for example, right? So the only satisfaction of having done the right thing is seeing the numbers move in the right direction, right? And trust me, this never gets old, right? As long as, be it a junior PM or a director or a VP, right? Once you see the metrics moving in the right direction after a release, it's so much satisfying and fun, right? So they help you quantify the impact. You can take data informed decisions, right? And a lot of times there are alternatives, there are different options that you could try. So all of this you can take a data informed decisions, right? And next is obviously, while you're building your product roadmap, you can use the expected gains, or the impact that this product feature will have while prioritizing your product roadmap, right? Any questions, thoughts? Yeah. Moving on, right? So first of all, for any product, right, to exist, there is a business associated with it, right? So I'm trying to I'm trying bucketed different types of metrics, right? So first one is business metrics. Business metrics, for example, like average revenue per user, right? This will tell you, let's say, in an e-commerce world, let's say if 1,000 users make a purchase, right, worth, let's say, lakh rupees, right? So then average revenue per user tells you what is the average amount of order that you are getting, right, from one order, right? Or it could be across an order per a month or a year, right? So from one user, how much revenue are you earning, right? That in a day, month, year, any duration, right? And then average order value is what is the basket size, right? How much are people creating cards for, right? Gross margin is, the your margin, right? Difference between the revenue and cost of goods sold, right, divided by the revenue as a percentage, right? User conversion, right? It is one of the key metrics that any PM would be tracking, right? Basically, let's say if 100 people visit your app or your website, out of them, let's say 10 of them place a transaction or do an activity that you are tracking, right? So that becomes your 10% becomes your conversion, user conversion, right? So user conversion helps you identify of all the users who are coming to your platform or app product, right? How many of them are converting, right? And your aim will be to keep improving the user conversion metrics, right? Average basket size is, average number of items per order. Then revenue per session is, let's say in one session, how much revenue are you able to generate, right? If are you able to generate more and more revenue in a given session or not, right? And a lot of companies use, now, I'm sure you would have read this, right? Customer lifetime value, right? So typically for a product or a PMF to occur, right, your cost of acquisition should be less than customer lifetime value. And what is customer lifetime value? Average revenue that a given user and an average user will generate for you, for your business, in their lifetime, right? And of course, there are a lot of nuances in this. For early stage startups, it may be very hard to define what a lifetime means, but over a period of time, you will start developing understanding of the retention, and then based on that, you will identify the customer lifetime value, right? So for example, a monthly retention rate is, let's say, 10%. This means that of 100 customers that you acquire today, next month 10 customers will come back and place an order, right? And how many orders per user is becomes your repeat rate of frequency, right? So retention into frequency gives you uh, revenue from that from an average user in that month, right? And when you sum it over a period of lifetime, right, which could be, let's say, 9 months or a year or a 2 year window, right, then you get the total average revenue that a user will generate, right, which becomes your customer lifetime value, right? So these are the key business metrics that any PM, some of these. So as a product, right, you will be impacting one or more of these metrics. So let's say if you are working on adding features that help in improving the user conversion, then you will be tracking user conversion as a metric, right? Or for example, you are building a recommendations product, cross sell product, where, let's
अरे
say,
ऐसे
I'm
दूर से
sure you,
बंदा वो जो बोल रहा है उसी को पूछ रहा हूँ.
sorry. Yes, yes. Shivam, I'll cover that question. How to choose correct metric. And how do startups with few users and few products decide metrics, right? So see, some of these are very standard metrics, Pratik, right? Even startups, as a startup, you will be responsible for conversion, or average revenue per user, average order value, because your valuation, your overall viability of the business will depend on these metrics, right? So you will these are very standard metrics, at least the business metrics. The lifetime value may not be very evident at the start of a business, but over a period of time you will start developing understanding of it, right? And in terms of choosing the right metric, that's where understanding the product comes, right? So for example, if you're working on a cross sell product, where let's say you recommend products in cart based on the products that a user has added to their cart, right? Then that's cross sell upsell. What would that lead to? It will lead to some people buying more products, and it will lead to increase in average basket size. So for your product, as a PM, right? Typically, and a lot of startups follow this, right? You as a product manager will be owning one specific metric, business metric, that hey, you are going to improve user conversion, you are going to improve average basket size, or you are going to improve unit economics, which is gross margin, or you are going to improve the average order value. Let's say if you are working on ranking algorithms which are going to display products such that it leads to higher business, and without hampering the user conversion, it leads to higher average order value, then you will be tracking average order value, right? So from based on your product, how it is going to impact the business metrics, you will be responsible for one or more of the business metrics, right? And typically you'll be owning one, right? And then moving on, right? So then comes the engagement metrics, right? Engagement metrics are to do with what your users are doing with your app, how are they engaging with your app. What is engagement? Engagement is, let's say, visiting the app. Engagement is, let's say, clicking on wishlisting a product, or viewing the product, or adding a product to cart, right? So any action that the user does, right? For example, for app like Healthify Me, engagement might mean how many people log their diet, right? Or the food that they are taking, right? Or how many people track steps on Healthify Me, right? So engagement metrics is anything that the user is doing on your app, right? Some of the examples are, and some of them engagement metrics are pretty standard metrics. For example, these are pretty standard metrics and are tracked across apps, right? And some of them might be specific to your business with that business nuance, right? So these are typical for an e-commerce, right? Product page visits per session, right? How many products is the customer visiting on an average in a session, right? So to start with, monthly active users, right? What does this mean? Total number of unique visitors in a month, right? So how many monthly active users you have, right? And then daily active users, total number of unique visitors in a day, right? And DAO by MAU ratio of these two metrics indicates how sticky are your users on the platform. Are they coming on a regular basis, or are they coming monthly in a once, right? So if you are a app which is, let's say, so for example, a social media app, right? App like ShareChat, etc. You will want your DAO by MAU ratio to be very high, because you will want each of your user to come back on a regular basis, on a daily basis, right? But for example, for an e-commerce app, that might not be the case, right? But any day you'll be working towards improving your DAO by MAU ratio, right? And then there's average session duration, right? It is the average time spent by the visitors on the product, right? How much time are they spending on the app? Again, for an app like ShareChat, for example, right? People spending more time on the app will be good for them, because people are viewing more videos, and hence there will be, let's say, more avenues for monetization. You could show them more number of ads, right? Or for example, for an e-commerce metric, e-commerce company, it might not be that critical to track as a metric, because you may want, let's say, hey, the customer should find the product that they are looking for as quick as possible, and just convert, right? So for them it might not be that tricky, right? But still they would want to track how it is trending, right? So that they can understand if it is dropping, why is it dropping? If it is increasing, why it's increasing, right? Average number of page visits per session, product page visits, or other engagement activities, right? We discussed if a user is doing wish listing or add to cart or search, etc., right? How you could track those, right? Any questions, thoughts on business or engagement metrics? Sure. Moving on. Then I will cover the retention metric, right? So retention is one of the very important metric towards understanding whether you have arrived at a product market fit or not, right? What I believe is that ideally, when once you have launched a startup, right? If your 30-day retention rate or whatever X day retention rate is improving over a period of time, right? Then it means that you're able to uh, regain or keep your customers after their first transaction as well, right? So how is 30-day retention rate measured? You get the users at the end of the period. For example, let's say as of 1st August I had 100,000 users, right? I added 20,000 users, right? And then at the end of the period, at the end of August month, I had, let's say, 70,000 users, right? So 70,000 users minus 20,000 users that I added, which is 50,000 users, divide by 100,000 users. This becomes your 30-day retention rate, which means you lost 50% of your customers with which you started with on the start of the duration, right? So your 30-day retention becomes 50%. Now, it's not necessary that every business will track 30-day retention rate. So this duration, the number, you will have to arrive at based the natural frequency of your product. Now, how do you arrive at the natural frequency? There are multiple ways. One is that, of course, through user research and through market understanding, you will know that typically, for example, through market research, you will know that, hey, typically people buy fashion or lifestyle products once every quarter. These are just indicative numbers, right? So let's say then your retention becomes 90-day retention, because you would want that whenever they want to buy lifestyle products, as a company you would want them to come back to your platform, right? So then your natural frequency becomes 90 days, so you will tag 90-day retention rate. But let's say if you are a payment app like a Paytm, right? Probably you would want your customer to visit every day, because you would have to make some or the other payment on a daily basis, or maybe a weekly basis, right? So you will track probably a weekly retention rate, right? So this helps you gauge whether the users who have tried your product, are they coming back to use your product or not. And if they are coming back, it means your product is adding value to them, right? And they would keep giving you recurring revenue by coming again, right? So ideally you would want your retention rate to improve like a hyperbolic, right? But it is also possible that once a business scales, right, once a startup scales, your retention rates should at least be flattening, right? Let's say it should not be a falling retention rate over a period of time, but it should at least be a horizontal graph, right? Like 12% retention rate over a period of time, right? And churn is just the opposite of retention. It just measures what percentage of customers are you losing, right? So if 50% were your retention rate, then 50 or 30 were your retention, then 70% becomes your churn rate, right? Are you following? Are you with me?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
How does it take care of repeating users? Shivam, can you elaborate your question a bit? So frequency is not counted in retention, if your question is around that. So repeat rate as a metric is separate. Repeat rate is, let's say you retained 50 customers in the month of August. what was average number of orders that those customers placed. That will become your total number of orders placed by your retained customers divided by total number of retained customers. So if they place, let's say, 1.5 orders per month, right, then your total number of orders become customers at the start of the month into retention into average number of orders. So yeah, that's how repeat plays into the picture, repeat rate, right? Then moving on to traffic metrics, right? So traffic is basically how many users or how many sessions are, being done on your app, right? So ideally, and there are a bunch of initiatives that you do to, bring traffic to the platform, right? So one key metric that you'll be doing is sessions per user, right? How many for a given duration? It could be on a daily basis or it could be at a weekly basis, right? So average number of sessions per user, how many times on an average are they coming to your platform to do a session, right? And session typically is defined as a 90 minute window, right? So if a user comes after a 90-minute window, then a new session is generated typically, right, across platforms. But it may vary, the definition of the duration may vary from company to company, right? And then of course platform wise installs, right? Are you You might be running some paid marketing campaigns to drive app installs, or you might be doing social media marketing or organic marketing, right, in order to drive app installs. So app installs is one another indicator of how you are growing as a business, right? So you track the number of app installs by platform, Android, iOS, let's say for a watch app as well, watch, etc., TV. Then traffic by source, right? So as I told you, right, traffic comes from multiple sources, right? It could be paid versus organic. Organic is basically the user opened the app or launched the website on their own, right? You didn't have to pay to a traffic generating source for getting that user on the platform. That is organic traffic. Organic traffic also includes the traffic from SEO. SEO is search engine optimization. How do you ensure that your website is visible in the Google search results for the queries that are relevant to your business, right? So organic traffic is that. Then paid is, let's say if you are running paid marketing campaigns or remarketing campaigns on social media, on different platforms, right? YouTube, etc., right? So that is paid marketing. How much traffic is your paid marketing campaign generating, right? So you would want to track your paid versus organic traffic. How is it growing? Is your organic traffic improving, or is your paid traffic in line with your spends, digital marketing spends that you're doing, right? And then you could also generate traffic from own media. Own media is typically emails, SMS, push notifications, and these days WhatsApp as well, right? So how much traffic are you able to generate from these channels, right? So basically that is the traffic by source. And then bounce rate, right? So bounce rate is a hygiene metric that you would track from a traffic perspective. This is to identify the quality of users that you're bringing to the platform. For example, if you are running a paid marketing campaign whose targeting is very poor, who is bringing the bad quality users, right, then these users, they would launch the app and then do nothing and just drop off, right? So a bounce becomes a very good metric to track that percentage of users who visited only one page on your app or website and left, right? This indicates that the quality of traffic that I'm bringing to the platform is not that good, right? And especially for paid marketing, your objective would be to bring in good quality users to your app, right? So bounce rate becomes another metric under traffic metrics, right? Now, any questions on traffic metrics? Uh,
Another question, like, how do you prioritize insights from user research or insights from other metrics to decide what features are there?
yeah, right. So it's not that how whether you prioritize qualitative inputs versus quantitative inputs. I think for any feature in your backlog, right, you will get qualitative insights and then plan that feature, right? And for each feature, right, there are various prioritization methods that PMs follow, right? Typically, let's say one widely used prioritization framework is RISE framework, right? RISE framework is nothing but reach, right? What is the reach that that feature is going to give you in terms of your user base? Is it going to impact 100% of your audience or only 10% of your audience, right? Reach into impact. Impact is what delta of an impact is it going to bring, right? And then confidence. So confidence on impact and reach is another dimension. So reach into impact into confidence divided by efforts or effort square becomes your RISE score. Effort is the number of man weeks or let's say resource weeks that is it is going to take you to build that feature or build that story. RISE framework. Of course, there are nuances around hygiene issues or bug fixes, etc. will take priority over these, but you would want to ideally prioritize based on RISE framework, right? And basically, you will use the qualitative insights as well as the quantitative estimates, right? That this feature is going to impact my this metric by this much percentage as an impact score to prioritize your product features in the backlog. I hope, Prateek, that answers your question.
How many product metrics do we have to take into consideration, sir?
No, so and I'm going to cover that question, and then probably if you still feel we can we'll come back to this question. Okay, let's park that for now. Right now, I'm just covering the different types of metrics, right? And then I'm going to cover, how do you select what are the right frame metrics that you should track for your product, right? Not every metric is going to be tracked by every PM, right? Also, there are various levels of hierarchy of metrics also which you will be tracking depending on your role as well, right? Moving on, so customer experience metrics, right? So this metrics tell you what kind of impact your product is having on the customer experience, right? This is right from the customer's voice, right? And there are multiple ways to measure customer experience scores, right? Very easy one being rate average customer ratings on the Play Store or App Store, right? So if you have an app, you would see the impact of your product feature on customer ratings, right? If you're solving a very key pain point, then ideally your customers should start giving you better ratings, right? And that should lead to visibility in that change. And another thing is net promoter score, right? How many of you have seen that surveys or emails or push notifications where companies or products would ask you, how would you rate on a scale of 0 to 10? How would you rate, let's say, Myntra's product experience, right? Or product delivery experience, right? So that is just but a NPS score, right? NPS score is used to gauge your customer satisfaction, loyalty, and enthusiasm towards your product, right? Because a good NPS score indicates that your customers are happy and you are going to get a good word of mouth, which will get you more customers, right? And what is net promoter score? It is basically percentage of promoters minus percentage of detractors. So what are promoters? So promoters are people who gave a score of 8 to 10. They will strongly advocate your product amongst their peers, friends, family, right? And percentage detractors. So detractors are customers who give your custom product a poor rating, let's say a 5 or a less than 5 rating, right? These are the customers who will talk bad about your product, who will give negative word of mouth and lead to lesser customers trying your product. So percentage promoters minus percentage detractors, right? It becomes your net promoter score. For example, companies like Netflix is the gold standard of NPS, right? So in 2018 they had an NPS of 64, and companies like PayPal, Amazon, etc., they have very good promoter scores. So and as a company, as a product, you would want to keep running net promoter score surveys on a regular frequency to understand how you are tracking, how you are performing from a customer experience perspective, right? And it's not just the number that matters, right? And in NPS scores, a lot of companies would also ask you to give a detailed feedback that, hey, if you rated 5, what were the aspects that led you to rate us 5? Was it product selection? Was it product discovery, app experience, offers, payments, delivery, right? So customers would select aspects by which they rated poor, right? And then you would also rate, do the something for same thing for when you like the product, right? So these things will give you qualitative insights into which area is one of my biggest concern from a customer experience perspective, right? And then companies also have a free text input where customers can key in their comment or feedback about that rating, right? So and trust me, the reviews or the reviews that the customers put, right, is a very good place to start mining product feature ideas, right? If you go to any app, right, for example, be it ClearTape, Make My Trip, Flipkart, anything, right, and you start reading reviews, of course there will be a lot of generic reviews like bad quality product delivered or high price or etc. But within that, if you're able to figure out, there will be a lot of good quality feedbacks as well from your customers, because this will translate into product features, right? A very good example was that at Myntra, for example, a lot of customers used to tell us that, hey, it becomes very cumbersome for me to select few brands. Can I exclude certain brand products when I am browsing? I don't want to see products from a particular brand, right? So and this emerged from customer feedbacks, and then we implemented this, that, hey, as a customer, you would be able to exclude certain product brand as a filter when you're browsing, right? So customer experience also feeds into your roadmap building, right? These metrics or these reviews, right? Any questions, thoughts? What metrics would you use to measure the success of a new feature? Yes, Harsh, we are going to cover that in terms of how do you select the metrics, right metrics for your product, right? Uh, how to approach PM interview questions. I will try to cover this as this question towards the end of the session. I have certain things that will help you answer this question. It's a very good question, and a very in typically product interviews, these questions are asked, right? Yeah, exactly, right? So dimensions for metrics, right? So the metrics that we spoke about, right, you will be looking at different dimensions. So for example, if we looked at user conversion as a metric, right, then you will look at user conversion across different platforms. So user conversion on an Android device might be different from an iOS device, right? So you will track all the metrics of your product that you're tracking, right, at different dimensions. And those dimensions might have some business nuance, product nuance, but this list is to just give you an idea, right? For example, platform becomes a very key dimension, right? Especially in a world where your product, your app or website can be accessed across different interfaces on your apps, mobile web or desktop, right? So platform. Then gender, for example, are your male customers using the product differently compared to your female customers, right? Or customer personas also, right? Let's say if you have defined customer personas within your company, right? A lot of companies segment their customers into let's say custom logic based segments, and then track the metrics for those customers at that dimension, right? Location being one another dimension. For example, for Swiggy as a business, right? We are across 500 plus cities, right? So how do you track metrics at an India level, it might not actually reflect a lot, right? Whereas what might be happening is that, let's say, tier one cities are showing a drop in conversion, but tier two cities are showing a increase in conversion, right? So that's why you need to look at the metrics at a location dimension as well. For example, on a if WhatsApp as a product, right, or TikTok, for example, as a product, right, you will need to track it across continent at a country level, right? That hey, how am I how is my MAU at in India versus, let's say, in the United States, or how is my user growth in India versus United States. So you look location as a dimension as well, right? And then purchase sequence as well, right? For example, what is purchase sequence? A new user is at a PS0, which is has not placed any order. PS1 is a user who has placed one order, and so on. So typically, their comfort with your platform becomes more, right? So their conversions will be slightly higher. Their average order values might be higher. Their the number of products that they buy might be higher, or transaction values might be higher. So that's why it's important to track your metrics at purchase sequence as well, right? Okay, are your new users getting more impacted, or is it across, let's say, purchase one or purchase two and so on, right? Then source of install. This is basically, especially from a new user conversion perspective, right? That was the conversion of new users dropping for paid installs, people who came through marketing campaigns or through organic sources, right? So this will tell you that, hey, if my paid conversions are dropping, conversions of paid installs are dropping, and organic is flat, it tells you that, hey, probably the user mix that is coming from paid campaigns, paid marketing campaigns, is poorer, right? Or similarly for organic, let's say, you could say, right? Then if organic is dropping, then there could be some other reason, right? So the question that you mentioned, right, how do you approach a certain metric went down kind of questions, right? Basically, you start drilling down your metric. Let's say you say that user conversion went down, right? Then you will say that, hey, first of all, try to understand whether the data itself is correct or not. A lot of times your reporting platforms or dashboards might be broken, delayed, right? So check the sanctity of the data. If the data is confirmed to be correct, right, then you start drilling down on different dimensions, right? And app version is another dimension, right? So did you ship a new app release, new app version, which broke a feature and led to a drop in conversion? So app version becomes another dimension, right? So you break down your metric across different dimensions to identify trends. And then, let's say, if a metric is dropping on Android but not on iOS, for paid versus organic, app versions, etc., right? To drill down that, hey, my metric is dropping because of Android paid users, and I have to do something about it. That's how those questions are addressed, right? Yeah, quickly moving on, right? And these are very two useful frameworks, right? I really find the heart framework very good, right? So I'll talk about it first, right? So this is a framework that has been evangelized and also used by Google product teams, right? So heart stands for happiness, engagement, adoption, retention, and task success, right? A lot of times, a few people say that, hey, retention is not my job. As a PM, I'm not owning the retention metric, or as a PM, I'm not owning the engagement metric. But that is not the right approach towards it. Every PM is responsible for the heart of their product, right? Heart means happiness. Let's say, how happy are your customers by using your product? That is customer CX metrics, right? Are your customers happy after using, let's say, if you are a search product manager, are you users happy after searching for a product and seeing the results? Are they satisfied with seeing the results or not? engagement is, what is the level of engagement, and anywhere engagement comes in, it is user actions, right? How are users engaging with your product? Let's say for a search product, it will be, are users clicking on the products that you are showing them or not, right? So what is your list to product page click ratio, right? Then adoption is what percentage of users are trying your product, right? And typically you would want that over a period of time this number should go up. And why this matters is, for example, you will be owning a small product within a larger product, right? For example, if you are owning a filters product in a larger e-commerce app, right, then you would want that more and more people should start using filters, so that their product purchase journey is much more smoother, right? So you will track adoption. Retention is what percentage of users who used filters and came back to session with you are also using the filters product again, right? This tells you, this is a very strong signal to tell you that your product is adding value to the customer, right? Because if they don't find your filters product useful, they will say that, hey, this is useful, I'm better off not using applying filters, right? So retention also you need to track. Then task success, right? This is your transaction metric, where they're able to complete their task or not, right? This is typically your buying transaction conversion rate or not, right? So this is how you identify related metrics that you should track for your product, right? There's a very good framework. Similarly, there is this game framework, right? Game is based on goals, actions, metrics, and evaluations, right? Goal is, hey, list down what are the user's objective, what is the job that the user is trying to do, right? Then identify what are the actions that the user is doing on your product, right? And then list out all the metrics that are associated with that action, and then identify and evaluate which ones would you choose to measure and track or not, right? And then you will have to trade off. Let's say if there are two similar metrics, you will track only one, and this is important more than that, right? So you will try to track different aspects of your metrics product, and come up with a MECE kind of a list, right? Mutually exhaustive, but mutually exclusive, completely exhaustive, right? So these are the two frameworks that you can use to identify what metrics should I track for a given product. Does that answer my question so far for people who have had that question? Cool. Moving on. So I have two case studies. Maybe we should do one, or are we good with extending 15 minutes or so? How would you say, Aniba or others? Maybe.
Yes, I are cool with that.
Sure, sure. Got it. So then basically this is and this is one case study that I will be going through, and then the next one we as a group will have to do completely together, right? So this is basically for a recommendations product. Let's say on an e-commerce product website, right? You might see on a lot of product pages, right? You might also like, or products that are similar to this, right? As a widget, right? So you as are a PM who has either added this widget or made some changes with respect to the presentation of this widget, or the ranking or the relevance of the products that are displayed, right? So what's the goal of this widget is to facilitate additional discovery of products, cross sell, upsell. Cross sell is basically, let's say if the user was looking for a t-shirt, you show them jeans, or if they were looking for jeans, then you are showing them, let's say, hoodies, right? Or upsell is trying to show them, let's say, a higher priced or better quality or better branded products, right? So those are your goals, right? Now actions that the user can do is, let's say, users can click, or let's say wishlist your product, or add to cart any particular product, right? Or purchase. So these are the user actions that the user is doing, right? So what metrics you can measure from an engagement perspective? click हो गया तो click through rates, and relevance becomes median click position, right? So median click position is where are the users clicking, so 1 2 3 like that, right? Because you want to ensure that you show them much more relevant products towards the start, right? So ideally your median click depth should be as low as possible, right? And then transaction related metrics would be revenue per user. Are you able to get users to buy more by, this will indicate are they generating more revenue, or average order value is are they buying more in value, average basket size we discussed, user conversion, right? So these become your transaction metrics, right? And then basically you evaluate, this was the game framework, right? That what are the dimensions that you might want to track this at, or let's say you may want to track this separately for Android users, product category specific, right? Whether people are more likely to upsell to products when they are seeing a t-shirt or a jeans, right? So those are the kind of dimensions that you may identify. So this is the game framework when applied to this, right? Similarly, let's say if you apply the heart framework, right, that you arrive at the goal. These are the actions that the users are doing. Let's say, yeah, sorry, yeah, this is what we have to do. So you are a filters product PM, right? And the filters are basically filters help users shorten their consideration set, which is, let's say, on an e-commerce world, typically you will have, let's say, thousands of products. So filter would help you narrow down your consideration set to, let's say, 100 150 or lower number, right? So that you are discovering products that you're more likely to or more looking to buy, right? The actions that the user can take is click on filter CTA to invoke the filters product, select any criteria such as size, brand, category, etc. Select filter value, which is, let's say, 40 ml XL, or and then apply or discard, right? Now, every one of you has to apply the hard framework to arrive at what are the metrics that you would track it from a PM, if you were the PM of this product, right? And I'll just show you the hard framework so that it's easier. Is the question clear? Any inputs, any details that you want from me? Cool. So, sorry. Yeah. So now you have to apply hard framework. We'll just wait for a minute or two to arrive at the, and you would start sharing your inputs when we start the discussions. Anushil, I'll come to your question after this case study. So this is the hard framework.
You have to apply hard framework to which product?
Yeah, yeah. So for the filters product. Start posting on message when you are done. For example, for people who are, done with the activity exercise. I hope you are able to complete by then. Cool. Yeah. Let's start. For happiness, what metrics would you track? Would anyone like to share? So Harsh has shared in happiness, number of users leaving positive feedback for on products chosen to filter criteria. It will be slightly nuanced, Harsh. Basically, it will be basically not on product chosen, right? Because I mean, you as a filters PM might not be able to control the selection that you have on the platform, right? So typically, let's say if you're a filters product, you will be running a NPS survey for filters product, right? So you identify customers, let's say, who have interacted with filters product in let's say last one day, and randomly send a survey to, let's say, 100 customers or 1000 or 10,000, right? And then start looking at the NPS score and the score feedback that your customers have given to you, right? That becomes your uh, happiness score, right? Of course, then there are other indicators of happiness score, which is user conversion. Are users converting with their purchase or not, right? Right, so if your customers were on the listing page, did they move to product page or not? Because if they saw more number of customers are seeing relevant products, so they will move ahead in their funnel. So list to product page will be another happiness score, right? And then or are they discovering more number of products or not, right? That becomes your happiness score. It is an implicit way in which users are showing their happiness, right? Now engagement is related to the actions that they are taking, right? Has anyone put in engagement? Session frequency, Sahil, might not be relevant because uh, as a filters product, you are not necessarily making users come back more often, right? You are not going to impact the frequency with which they session, right? You are not generating traffic, rather you are helping them convert, right? So that's why engagement, you will not be tracking session frequency. Anyone with the engagement metric? Engagement, Harsh Divakar, number of products purchased per product criteria. Sure, but engagement metrics are typically tied more to the actual actions that the users are doing with your product, right? So here, people are clicking on filter criterias or values, or applying the filter or discarding the filter, right? So here, what we will track from an engagement perspective is that, hey, uh, what is the number of filter criterias that people are using, right? Or what is the number of filter values applied per filter application? Because if they are using filters effectively, then they would be engaging more with your product, right? So if they understand the filters product, then they are understanding the product, right? Then adoption, right? Adoption is very straightforward, right? What percentage of users are applying filters, right? Has anyone entered adoption? No. So adoption becomes, what percentage of your users are using filters, or what percentage of your listings, product listings, saw at least one filter applied, right? So that becomes your adoption metric. Then retention, it's straightforward, right? 30-day retention or 7-day retention. What percentage of users who applied filter today, right, and then come back to session later and saw a list page, also applied the filter, right? So because if they find the filters useful, they will come back and use it again. So that is your retention. Task success rate is basically, uh, let's say they tried applying a filter, they initiated a filter click, but then they bounced off, they didn't complete applying the filter, right? Does that make sense? Task success rate is indicating the success of the task that the user was trying to do. The task was, I want to apply a filter. So basically we are applying filter page bounce rate. Are they ending up actually applying the filter, or are they discarding the filter page? And a high bounce rate would indicate that, hey, people are maybe getting confused after launching the filter page. Maybe people are not get understanding how to use it, or maybe the presentation is not correct, right? So this is the hard framework applied, right? Of course, there can be more metrics or lesser metrics, but you will track some of these metrics. I'll try to check the answers that people have posted. Nitish, filter selected by user frequently. Yes, this is one of the engagement metrics, right? That what are the popular filters that people are selecting, right? Do people want a price-based filter, or do people want a category or something else-based filter? Yeah. Product purchased added to cart, yes, the happiness metric, right? So uh, uh, this can also come under task rate, but if the task is just to apply a filter, then these metrics may be in happiness score, because if the task is successful and the users are happy, they will apply, they will purchase a product, or they will add a product to cart, right? So yeah. So and then I told you, right, then typically there are different hierarchy of metrics, right? So as a PM, you will have to arrive at what are the L0, L1 and L2 metrics. L0 metrics are the metrics are that are very important, and that, let's say, your skip manager would also be tracking, right? L1 metrics are the metrics that you and your manager also would be tracking, for example. And L2 metrics are probably the metrics that you as a product manager track, but not necessarily everyone else tracks, right? So percentage users applying filters, or percentage list views, 30-day retention rate, right? These become your L0 metrics, right? And why they become L0 metrics is because these are very specific to filters, right? And then L1 metrics is user conversion. Are they moving ahead in the filter or not? And why is this an L1 metric? Because it's not necessarily that alone filter is driving user conversion, right? User conversion will be driven by a lot of things. Hence, it's an added as an L1 metric. But to gauge any success or impact of any product metric and any product change that you do in a filters product, right, you will measure the user conversion impact, because that's how you will get to know that eventually is it leading to more number of users placing orders or not, right? And then this metric also we discussed, right? List to PDP funnel conversion, or number of products viewed per user. Are they viewing more products because now they are seeing relevant products, right? And then the L2 metrics, someone also pointed out, right? Top filter criterias used for a given category, top filter values, right, etc. So yeah, this is it. We can, uh, if there are any questions, we can go through Q&A. So, Nitish, to your question, right? I think if you start reading more and more about product, right, you will start learning what metrics are important. And when you join an organization, or if you start on your own, right, you'll read a lot about what product metrics are important, and then once you start with this, right, you will start getting a hang of which is important or not, right? And especially things that define the success of the job that the product is trying to do, right, will be really important to track. And over a period of time you'll develop that depth. So don't worry about it. I think it's more about understanding what metrics are definitions, basically basics. What's the best way to join Swiggy as a PM? Sure. Uh, uh, yeah, Swiggy, you can apply for Swiggy, or maybe Swiggy will visit the campus and you can interview and get selected. So yeah, I mean, if there's anything specific I can help, I can answer that. And if you're looking for a lateral shift, maybe yeah, you can apply and refer or share your resume. Tools. So there are different tools like, let's say, Mix Panel or Google Analytics are typically used by organizations, and a lot of organizations also have their own in-house reporting tools, right? Power BI is also one tool. A lot of companies build their own dashboard, own reporting platforms. So depends from one to another. But I'm sure when you start or when you learn, right, tools is the easiest part, right? Knowing what to measure is the first step that you need to do, right? Once you know what you need to measure, then the instrumentation, etc., can be done quite easily. And the tools are quite easy. There are a lot of tutorials that you can read about Google Analytics or any other also. See, I would say not necessarily, but at least let's say if you are familiar with one tool, I don't think APMs would be expected to be very fluent with these tools. But maybe what would help is probably, let's say that there's a Google Analytics Academy, right? The Google Analytics is the product by Google, right? And a lot of companies use Google Analytics. So what you can do is you can get started by, there's a basics course that they offer, right? It's just a tutorial kind of that you can go through, that will help you understand what Google Analytics is and how can you set up metrics, dashboards, etc. So you can try. But if you're applying at APM roles, I think it's okay if you don't know all the tools very fluently. Uh, Recommend some books regarding metrics. I I have not seen any one book which will tell you regarding metric, but there will definitely be a lot of reading that you can do on the internet, right? Product metrics, etc. So there are a lot of things. Course I will show you. If the question is about Google Analytics course, then I'll just yeah. So this is the no, sorry. Yeah. So you can go through this Google Analytics for beginners.
I guess we have no more questions.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah,
for the session. It was an
sure,
amazing session and we learned quite a lot. And
sure,
the
sure.
audience was also quite curious.
Yeah,
So
sure, sure.
thanks a lot from the ECEL team.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I would love to get some feedback. If you have any, please do share any comments, posts on the LinkedIn or wherever. Yeah, sure. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice weekend. Bye bye. All the best for your interviews, internships, jobs. Bye.